In his record, he was actually rejected a visa to travel to the US from Kenya. And that was something that happened 30 plus years ago. So sometimes when you look at our law, it can make it look as though the law only works for certain individuals at certain times. We're talking about Sonko serving a term where he's been open about it, he's talked about it, he's even bonded with young people because of it, and showing that because I've come from there and now I'm here, that's something that he has used as his political ambition. And it has been able to build political clout around him. So I think there are other matters that are more concerning other than that term. If we're having a governor in these sort of cases, it should be how has he been doing the expenditure within the Nairobi City Council? Are there cases of corruption within there? Those are the stories that I would like to hear. Not something that did in 1998, he's already left and now he's governor. Now we want to take back steps because they're also the same people who provided him a permit to be able to vie. So now you want to come back. And we will talk about that as well. But even as you go there, Fred, let me ask you, because Governor Sonko hasn't taken this lying down. He's written numerous, put numerous publications in the dailies, written a letter to the EACC saying about, talking about some of the investigations that seem questionable on their side as well. What aren't we seeing in this particular investigation? What are we missing?
First of all, it's unfortunate that a county that is the heart of Kenya, in terms of a capital city, is in chaos. Today, as we speak, we are told that almost the entire cabinet has been summoned at EACC to record statements over various allegations of theft, of public money, and so on and so forth. The governor is a vipindire, and the administration seems not to be working, while the people who elected them in office are looking for services. Some of the roads in Nairobi are in very bad condition, and that is a function that the county government should be undertaking. The garbage collection, the pollution, all these things. While he's fighting for survival, I am not privy to the investigations that he's undergoing, but I'm privy to the public information that is out there that service delivery at the county has been paralyzed. Has been paralyzed because of fights between the county service board and the county executive, MCAs and the county executive. That one can only be occasioned by bad leadership. Remember, the authority that is assigned to a state officer like a governor, MCA, is an authority that must be exercised within certain limits. That authority must show respect. If some of these things do not show respect to the people, then you are not worthy being a state officer. If your action do not respect the dignity of your office, then you are not worthy to be in state office. And therefore, I would want to urge the Nairobi County resident to relook at their governor and his administration. If at all he has failed to deliver what he promised, irrespective of the challenges undergoing, then in the next election, or even before that, they should rethink and start looking at who is going to ensure that they deliver the services that they were promised. Because as it is today, in the next 2 years or less, nothing much is going to change. We're going to have vipindire in court, outside court, in the county assembly, in the county governor's office, and nothing will happen. Service delivery has been paralyzed. We have to accept it because we have got a vipindire county government.
Arnold, this isn't exactly someone who came from nowhere to become the governor of Nairobi. He was MP Makadara, Senator Nairobi, now governor. So each and every single time, of course, you have to go and get your clean bill of health before you vie. And these authorities can investigate all that you've been doing. So the question is, why are we investigating this Shimolatawa incident now? After coming severally before this same authority and being told, fine, go ahead and vie, you are good to go, why are we backtracking on this particular incident?
I remember in 2016-17 when he was trying to run for governor, he had a problem. We had news about him having a problem getting his good conduct. And I'm told somebody intervened, a high person intervened, and he got his good conduct. Clearly, a teacher of mine would say that somebody is trying to teach Sonko a little bit of the fear of God. He definitely has stepped on somebody's toes, and somebody is trying to just ensure that he goes slow or actually tries to manage him. But I know that whereas a number of people within the national government, especially within Jubilee, do not like the way Sonko has been running government, I would like to tell them that if you see how Nairobi looks like, That's exactly how Jubilee has actually been running the country. Nairobi is a reflection of how Jubilee has been running the country. It's just a reflection. This is a small one. The country has been on autopilot the same way. I do not want to go back to what Frederick has actually said. Nairobi has been so much on autopilot, and that is how the country really looks like. So they shouldn't really feel bad. He actually just looks like them. But that said, we really need to look at the bigger picture here. That apparently in this country, corruption and such like stuff are only taken serious when you become a threat or you step on other people's toes. And I want to bring in a case that is not here. Until Aisha became whoever she has become, we didn't know she had a lot of cases, the kind of stories that are coming out with her CDF, and very shocking stories. So, and that is the death of our fight against corruption. Because apparently, our intelligence and the people who are supposed to, the duty bearers in that particular sector, know so much, but they wait until you get off track and then they start dealing with you. If we're going to be fighting corruption in a selective manner, and I think I do not necessarily say that he's innocent, but his protestations actually hold water because it is not new. Everyone has known about this until he got to some level where, and he's speaking about those cases he has done. That is when now these cases are being brought in. Definitely you will know from the political practice that that is to either to slow him down, to little bit, just tell him, take care of, please, you are going too fast, slow down. And that is so wrong. That is not how you run a country. So the long and short of this is that we might not really win the war against corruption. And the whole idea about the bad leadership we have in this country, if this is the way we will be doing things.
Right.
That the police, this guy actually flagged this thing in 2016, 2017. And somebody intervened. I think papers wrote that the president actually personally intervened and he had his good conduct.
Right.
So today, EACC is going back. They are bringing up the same issue. So really, as a country, I don't think we are a country that is under the rule of law, a country that is just, a country that really needs progress.
Right.
Because we are out there fighting very personalized wars.
And even as you say this, of course, as we're talking about this particular story, it's one that you're following each and every single day, of course, even as EACCs record their statements at Integrity Center. We'll now move on from the People Daily to the Daily Nation's front page. Showdown looms of a mini budget, acid test for Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani after Parliamentary Committee recommended rejection of supplementary estimates. And the touch points on this are on health, on infrastructure, on energy, on service, on this particular one. Uhuru's Big Four agenda threatened by standoff over additional funds. If I'm wrong, if this happens, this will be the first time ever a supplementary budget has been rejected by Parliament. But the big question is, does Parliament have the spine to do that, to actually check the executive? Because from what we've seen so far, Parliament is a rubber stamp. Executive says, they say, okay. We've never had a situation where they push back. Do you feel this could be the one, Nerima?
I want to say yes, because we're at a time where economically, Kenyans, those who elected these members of parliament, are really going through it. And so if we're talking about even an increase in the budget, yes, Kenyans are concerned. There's been so many conversations about layoffs, about youth unemployment as well. And so the Kenyan people are not understanding how we're talking about an increase. And frankly, even when you're looking at what the suggestions that they are making, we're talking about expenditure still going toward recurrence, and we're not even talking about development. Development still is behind recurrent, and we're also looking at 10 billion extra that's going to the national government, and we're talking about what does the national government really do. As much as they're saying on the nation, they're saying that it's also touching on health, but we know that our health in our counties, which is supposed to be funded by the county governments, is struggling to even have medication on their shelves. One of the things that is eye-opening to me is the fact that they're still talking about putting more funding into infrastructure development. Yet, within the standard on the front page, they're talking about Jubilee's monuments that have died. You even talked about in the introduction how some of them just have plaques. There's no development happening. So when we're talking about an increase of a mini budget, 80 billion is not mini. We're talking about 80 billion being increased, and we still have projects that are dead-end projects that have not even begun. We still have high corruption Those are the questions that the people are concerned about. So you can see that people are angry, and representatives do feel the heat, do feel the pressure, and they do feel that they need to do something. Already with the interest cap, they were not there. They were silent. People were shocked. They were like, this is where you should have stood up and said something. But instead, they didn't. So are they going to allow that to happen again? I think they are fully aware that they cannot. They have to be seen to be doing something. And the fact that they're using the constitutional basis of the Public Finance Management Act is something that they have powers to do. So we will see.
Fred, let me bring you to the attention of what we've usually seen when it comes to such moments where Parliament can actually stamp the authority and, you know, play their role in terms of checking executive excesses, in the sense that they'll make a lot of noise about it. You might even see them on the floor, but when it comes to voting conspicuously, they walk out in protest. And you're left there wondering, okay, fine, that was not what we sent you there to do. Is this the time when they'll actually decide enough is enough?
First of all, I've looked at that story. There are a lot of irregularities in terms of even passing of those parliamentary approvals within the question timelines. And based on the, the Public Finance Management Act, they are not consistent at all. Number two, I've also looked at the supplementary budget, the areas, the budget lines. If you're looking at recurrent budget, major reductions, it is good to have reduction, especially in areas that we feel we should cut on and put that money elsewhere. Unfortunately, we have been told that this money is being cut to be directed towards the Big Four agenda. If you look at the vision of the Big Four agenda, it has never kicked off. And therefore, with only 2 years to the next election, or to the next government for that matter, how are we going to implement that? It is very strange. Number three, to go back to the question you've asked, we have got leaders in the parliament today. The majority leader speaks the same language with the minority leader. And it would be very easy for them to mobilize numbers to support such bills. But the reason why those bills could be rejected is because we can also be mobilized, or they can also be mobilized towards a certain direction. Today, if they are called and told, we would want to have a PG so that when you go to the parliament, you pass this as is, or you pass it because of this. In whose interest? It should be to the interest of the common man. If you read the standard today, we are talking about broke Kenyans push bad loans to 342 billion. Guys are struggling with paying loans. Economy has become very hard. If there's no money that is circulating to the common man so that they can meet their daily needs, I can assure you, even with these structures of austerity measure in terms of cutting down, reallocating, will not help as much. But I want to believe that the women and men in the National Assembly are women of integrity that will consider that the people that are elected into office are suffering, and therefore they'll do what is right in the interest of the people of Kenya, not in their own interest. We have seen instances where the members of parliament, and I'll give an example, were mobilized and allegedly given 10,000 shillings to reject a sugar report. We have seen instances where the nays had it as opposed to the ayes had it. We have seen situations where the members of parliament endorsed a presidential memorandum on fuel, while the Kenyans are making noise out there that this is going to kill us. So I will not be shocked if this doesn't go the Wanjiku way. I will not be shocked because they don't care. And while we are talking about that, when you drive around or walk around or use a matatu, the big vehicles, the fuel guzzler, are still existing. And guess who is in them? The same member of parliament. If he doesn't feel the pinch, then what will make you think that when he goes to parliament, he will endorse or propose or support a motion that is for the people, while him is not affected? We are a very selfish community, and we must now look our leaders in the eye and tell them, this is what we want, and if you don't do it to us, then you must go and go now.
It's interesting you bring that up because, Arnold, from this story, they're saying that the reason they want to reject this is because executive didn't follow the budget-making process. But there's another school of argument in the sense that if you look at some of the reductions that are happening in the expenditure, as a whole, probably 6 billion going from Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, could this be something else that could be used by executive in that if they give them or reduce less in terms of the Parliament and the Senate, then this might sail through? Is that the horse trading that needs to be done or that might happen?
there is a bigger picture, and I like to call it the curse of CDF. If you realize, CDF is a percentage of what the national government spends. And when the national government is actually trying to reduce that, automatically it reduces the CDF they will get. So normally parliamentarians have always supported increment in national government expenditure because eventually it reflects to what they take home in CDF. So whereas CDF was a very good thing when we began, it actually is haunting us today because we have forgotten what the work of the MP should be. We were trying to, that was an attempt in devolution to decentralize power and resources. We didn't have infrastructure or the framework to do that then when Kibaki came to government. Mm-hmm. But then the people we have brought in have been socialized to love CDF. So largely the bigger picture here is that Parliament is rejecting this in self-preservation for selfish interest because it will reduce what they actually take home in CDF. Two, there is another end here. What we have never been told, and what no one really talks about budget, is that we have always focused in the wrong direction when we talk about how do we reduce government expenditure. We have got a 3.1 trillion budget. But Jeff, if you put together both devolution, what goes to devolution, what goes to Parliament and the judiciary, it's less than 450 billion shillings out of 3.1 trillion shillings. So there is a whole 2.1 trillion that no one wants to talk about, as in 2.6 trillion shillings that no one wants to talk about. That money is what the executive has been using around. Somebody argued and says that it's about legitimacy because the executive has gone on a borrowing spree. The president asked where the money has gone, and literally that's where the money is. They've taken so much money, and Parliament did not have a problem with that because as much as the national government will spend, their CDF will always increase. Mm-hmm. So we should not run away from that. This one here is people who are running away because they realize probably they have done so much, but likely, like I've said, it's about this. The other thing I need to say is this, that we have always confused expenditure and called it development. We've spent so much, but that is how we define development in this country. Right. Our way of trying to buy legitimacy, parliamentarians no longer just want to do representation. We no longer do representation, we do the management of a people. Like you said, they walk out. So they're making noise around this, but they will be taken care of in a very good way, and you will not hear them talk about this again. So the larger picture here, there is going to be trade-off. Normally, Parliament holds the executive hostage, and there is a small trade-off here. Probably they'll be told this thing will not touch on CDF, something else will work around. Like we no longer talk about their night allowances. Mm-hmm. What happened to it? No one talks about it. But you know that the parliamentary budget went up from 38 billion to 43 billion shillings.
So you don't think that this is really going to be a showdown as is seen here? By the time it gets to the floor, it has been ironed out?
It will be managed because when it comes to the interest around budgeting, Parliament has not known the function of budgeting properly. It's their business, but they have never done it objectively. Even in this rejection, there's nothing objective in it. Nothing, totally. Mm-hmm. So by the time it gets to the floor, they'll have been managed because whatever Uhuru wants, Uhuru gets, especially in the National Assembly.
Right. Yeah. And you know, you look at that particular analysis of this particular scenario and how it will play out, and I'll come to you, Nerima, because you're talking to young people on their rights and how they should hold their leaders to account. In such a scenario, what do you do to make sure your member of parliament, your senator, actually speaks and, you know, raises your concerns as far as these issues is concerned and doesn't go and get the 5,000 shilling bribe in the toilet and it's business as usual?
It's putting pressure. Luckily, we have organizations that do follow up on what members of parliament actually say and how they participate, and encouraging young people to basically see what their representatives are doing. Because a lot of times we involve ourselves on election day and then we get frustrated, we vent online or we just vent to friends. And then we call it a day. We wait for the next 5 years when we can vote. And we base whether they were a good MP or not on how visible they were. But it's putting pressure on them because you'll find that a lot of youth actually have access to their numbers or their offices. And they do not necessarily go there visibly and show their frustrations or even communicate. If they do, sometimes, you know, you hear members saying how they are mainly contacted for hospital bills or funerals and things like that. So they have access to their numbers. So we are engaging young people to start engaging on the right things, how they're supposed to provide that support in terms of oversight. What are you doing for me, the person who elected you? And so asking the right questions and putting the right amount of pressure, and also consistency. Because at the same time, you know, you're telling you to do this, but they're also trying to hustle. They're also trying to look for employment. So it's not something that is easy to do, and our systems don't make it easy to do. Our constitution does give direct power to the people, but it doesn't tell you that that power also takes work. It also takes energy, and we can see how hard our representatives work to make sure that they are not accessible.
Right.
Even you're talking about something like public participation, it's not accessible. So it's not as simple as we make it to appear to be. But we tell them not to live in this bubble and think that who is going to come and save me? I hope someone will come and fix the situation.
Right.
Yeah, we need to understand that also citizens, as citizens, we also have a role to play.
Okay, very quickly, Fred, on the same, right before we get into our break, very many people, and the sentiment now, if you talk to a majority of Kenyans, is that, you know what, I voted twice the last elections and nothing has changed. In fact, 2022, I'm not going to the ballot. Let them decide, because either way, we are still in the same mess. How do you change that spirit? And when they look at such particular stories and realize whatever happens in Parliament really isn't about them?
Unfortunately, we are a country that is ethnically mobilized. And they'll say that today, and when the election comes, even tomorrow, they look for the surname and vote according to the surname. It's very unfortunate. Well, today we are suffering together. I want to urge the people of Kenya that the only power they have to change things is the power of ballot. And they can do it only once after every 5 years. After that, they cannot do much about it. Because even in the recall laws, they're very stringent and it is very difficult to work around them. The members of parliament, the MC, they know their way around it. But today, they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity because they have tasted the suffering. They have seen how things have gone bad. They are affected. Whether you said Kumira Kumira Turaku or you said Tiala Tibim, you are in the same boat. And today, they can now work together as the people of Kenya and say, if we are going to elect a leadership that is going to help us, then that leadership must be put through certain tests. And those tests must be a leadership that is able to deliver, must be a leadership that has integrity, must be a leadership that has got the power to tell the people of Kenya the truth and the only truth in terms of service delivery. We are suffering today because we were promised like Stadia. Remember? In 3 months' time, have you seen them? In 10 months' time, have you seen them? The youth employment, never. The Jubilee 10-point campaign agenda was as clear, as crystal clear as the ball. And we could see it, and it was admirable. But today they have failed. NASA the same, they have failed. The burden that we are now carrying is the burden of over-promising and under-delivering. The burden of corruption, the burden of bad leadership, the burden of over-representation, the burden of the debt that the members of parliament have pushed to 9 trillion. Now, if Kenyans see that as something that they should change, then they should first change themselves and go into an election where they can elect leaders that they believe in, and the leaders that they see have got tenets of leadership that will deliver them from this.
Okay, Fred, we'll have to take a break at that particular point. We come back after the break. We're actually going to talk about those promises that were made, where they stand so far, and the fact that a new set of promises was made midway that journey. Many unfulfilled promises, Jubilee's stalled project, the Daily Nation talks about, and the Standard's front page, Jubilee's monument of broken promises. What went wrong and how do they right this, even as they have 2 years or so left in the administration? We talk about that after the break.